Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pride Link Online and to this talk on how to know if PrEP is right for you. We are so excited to be offering this tonight. My name is Ethan Johnstone. I'm the founder and lead community builder of Pride Link. And for folks that might not know much about Pride Link, we are a nonprofit that serves the LGBTQ community in the upstate area, so 10 counties in upstate South Carolina. We offer health and wellness services, social support, access to resources through a few different programs. And we also provide LGBTQ plus education to community providers, organizations, educators. So sort of a two-prong approach. So those direct services to the community, and then those indirect services through education, trying to really make the upstate a thriving place to live for LGBTQ folks. So this workshop is part of our online series, and we're super glad to be recording today. So I am joined with Devonte Arrington, and I will let him introduce himself and jump into it. Devonte, glad to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you, Ethan, for having me. It is great to be here. As Ethan said, my name is Devonte Arrington. I work for New Horizons Family Health Services. And if you don't know what New Horizons Family Health Services is, it is a federally qualified healthcare center up here in the upstate. We have two official, actual clinic locations. The one that I work for is located on 975 West Ferris Road, and that is our newest location. And so that's where you'll find me. But also, if you live in like TR and Greer, we also have a Greer location or Travelers Rest location, whichever one's closer to pick. I do not know the address for the Travelers Rest one off the top of my head because I do not work there. But if you Google it, I'm 100% positive it will show up. And so there's also one in Travelers Rest, but I work for the one on Greenville here on Ferris Road. But also my job title is HIV Prevention Outreach Specialist, which is very long and a mouthful. But basically what I do is, and kind of a little bit what I'm going to be doing here tonight, is coming in and talking to all you great people about the wonders and the majesty of the HIV prevention pills known as PrEP. And so, like I said, I'm super excited to be here. My pronouns are he, him. I was like to throw that out there just in case anybody's wondering. And yeah, I'm just super excited to be here. And so, I guess, Ethan, I can see you, but you guys see me. So I just let it go and jump into it, get started. Okay, cool. He's giving me the thumbs up. I don't know if you guys can see him, but he's giving me the thumbs up. So I'm going to do this. Disclaimer, I am Ethan noticed I'm a bit spastic and sometimes all over the place, but I'm going to try to make this as fluid as possible, and it's just going to be awesome. So let me share my screen before I start sharing my beautiful presentation with all you great people. We're going to share it, and we're going to start from the beginning. The geographic, maybe that's fine. Okay, so this is my beautiful PowerPoint that I created to share with y'all here tonight. And as you can see, the title of it is Let's Talk About PrEP. And where that came from is, I don't know, this may be me disclosing my age a little bit, which I'm super old. There's no such thing as super old, but I kind of like to ease people into talking about PrEP because sometimes talking to PrEP to someone you don't know can be a little bit, it can be a little off-putting because we're going to be talking about sex and we do live in the South. And so a lot of people know the song, Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. And so we're going to talk about PrEP today. And so again, like I said, let's talk about PrEP. Those is my name again, Devonte Arrington, LMSW. What that just means is I'm also a licensed master social worker. And so that's what it is. And that's my title. And again, where I work, 975 West Ferris Road, Greenville, South Carolina. That is where you'll find me in office. All right, so yay. Okay, first slide is working. We're cooking with grease. So the first thing to talk about PrEP is, what is PrEP? And so PrEP basically stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis. And what pre-exposure prophylaxis is just kind of a breakdown of three different kind of medical terms. Pre, which obviously means before; exposure, which means coming into contact with the actual HIV virus; and then prophylaxis, which is a fancy word for preventative. So it's any kind of form of drug or medication that is a preventative measure. And so before I really get into the meat and potatoes of what is PrEP, I always kind of like to not scare people a little bit, but I have to hit you with the hard facts because a lot of times that's the hardest for people to hear. In 2018, there were over 17,000 people living in South Carolina with the HIV virus. And as we all know, HIV is not what it was back in the day. Like, it's not like it's in this day and age, people don't really die from HIV anymore. There is some cases of it, but it is a lot harder with all of the medications and the preventative regimens that we have nowadays. So I don't want you to hear that number and be like, oh my God, I can never go out and have sex again. That is not the case, but it is just throwing that number out there that that is the number of people in 2018 who were living diagnosed with HIV. In 2018 as well, there were 715 newly diagnosed people in South Carolina alone with HIV, which seems like a very large number. South Carolina is a very large state, which I've learned. I am not from here. I am from North Carolina, but South Carolina is a very large state. And so there were 715 in the total state of South Carolina who were newly diagnosed with HIV. Now, sliding it over away from that, let's move back into PrEP. So, per every like 100,000 people in South Carolina, the number of people who are currently on PrEP per that 100,000 number is 30. So, for every 100,000 people, there are 30 people who are on PrEP. And so, if you take that number and also put it in tandem with the people who are currently living with HIV virus in South Carolina, if one of those people was to take a rock and throw it into a crowd, it could be a Thor-sized boulder, and it would still be unlikely that that person would hit somebody who is on the preventative medications for HIV. And so that's just kind of giving you guys a little look into basically there is a need for PrEP in South Carolina. HIV does exist in South Carolina. It thrives in South Carolina. But there are preventative measures out there to protect you, to protect your partners, to just basically to I mean, just plain like sex is supposed to be fun. And so it's something that it can be fun, but it's also something where you need to be safe with. And so that is why I'm here to tell you about PrEP. So sliding back into my slide and moving away from all the scariness, like I said, PrEP is just an HIV preventative medication that you take to virtually decrease your risk by almost 100% from catching HIV. Nothing in the medical field is ever 100% though. Depending on what you read or depending on where websites you go to, you can get a number that's anywhere from, I think the lowest I've seen is 92% effective upwards to 99% effective. In my experience, I personally, I always kind of like to just touch away from what I say professionally, what I say personally. I personally, and even in some cases, what I've seen in my professional work, have never heard of an instance where someone takes their PrEP medication as is prescribed every day and it's contrary to HIV. There are some people will read about there are various different strains of HIV that someone could catch. But again, you would have to scour the internet to find that kind of data where someone who's been on HIV prevention medication and is taking it as prescribed daily that is contrary to HIV. And again, this is why I have this asterisk down here that says PrEP is presently prescribed to be taken orally once a day, every day. That is presently. The way medication is prescribed and the way medication is given changes. It could change on a dime. Just like now we were talking about like the COVID vaccines and how they're handling those, like giving out the injections. I could tell you everything about it right now. And by the time we wake up in the morning, it could be completely different. So again, this is just the way PrEP is prescribed right now. Orally, taken once a day, every day. Right down here, I have the pictures of the two medications. These are the only two medications that are approved by the FDA right now to be prescribed for PrEP. So these two medications, well, there's a caveat to that, but it's essentially still these two medications. There is, as with everything, there is a generic version of these medications, which is called imicitricitabine. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. I have it spelled out later up here, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's pronounced. But that is just the generic version of this medication on the bottom, Truvada, which is the one with 701. And so if you were coming to the office right now, handle all your business as far as the preliminaries we need to do before you get prescribed on PrEP, which I'll tell you about later, and you were to pick up your medication, if you were on Descovy, your medication will look like this one on the top, the little lighter blue pill with the numbers 225 on it, or the one on the bottom, which says 701. There isn't a really stark difference between these two pills. The biggest thing is that most places, including at New Horizons Family Services where I work at, our default one to go to is Truvada, just because I believe that what I from what I've heard, the side effects don't hit you as hard on Truvada as they do with Descovy. But a person who is born female, or a person basically who's born female or will like to get pregnant or something in the future, generally they go for Descovy just because I think that one is a little bit more friendly to that body type. It just connects better with that body type. So Descovy would be the one you would go with that case. But conventionally, Truvada is the pill that is prescribed for PrEP. And so moving forward. All right. So my favorite section is who is PrEP right for? So we're going to go through a little case. Also, my pictures look blurry. I realized while I was making this, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm not like a broke college student who can just snag pictures off Google anymore. I could actually get sued for these pictures. So I had to go and find like some copyright free images. So excuse me if they're blurry. I did the best I could. But basically what we're going to do is kind of a little fun game where I'm going to show you 3 different people. And I'm basically going to ask you guys, who do you think PrEP is most suited for right now? And so the first of the bunch is this is Holland with the beautiful smile. And I love the yellow background because yellow is my favorite color. But this is Holland. This is Melissa, also with a beautiful smile. And this is Gladys. We love Gladys. Gladys loves life herself. And so, a little bit about these people. Holland is what's conventionally thought in the medical field is an MSM. And MSM is just kind of the medical shortening for a man who has sex with other men. Just for character's sake, let's say Holland is a gay man. He exclusively sleeps with men. That is his thing. That is the only type of people he invites back into his bedroom. Holland is also HIV negative. Melissa is married in a heterosexual relationship, has been married for a long period of time, is also HIV negative. And then Gladys is widowed, apparently happily so. She looks very thrilled in the picture, and she is widowed, but she is also HIV negative. Out of these people, who do you think would be the person who we should jump on for PrEP? And I know we're recording this, so it's like a little bit, there's not going to be an answer, but to give a little time to think about it, did a little Jeopardy thing in my head. But I'll tell you, all of them. Every single one of these people is just as equal as a candidate for PrEP as any of the other ones. And let's talk about why. Statistically, if you looked at Holland, Holland would be the prime candidate where people would just jump on and say, okay, you need to be on PrEP. He's an African American person, which we know statistically they don't have the same access to healthcare. They don't have the same access to resources. And also with him being an MSM, statistically his chance of contracting the HIV virus are higher. But also what we don't know is that Holland could be in a committed monogamous relationship with a person who is HIV negative as well, and he could be totally fine. Whereas Melissa, who we see, is married, pretty, white, blonde, HIV negative. People wouldn't really look at her as being a prime candidate for PrEP, but also you don't know, her husband could be HIV positive for some reason, and she needs to be on PrEP to protect herself and to protect him. And also, if they want to have children in the future, she would be a prime candidate for PrEP. Gladys, now older adults have sex, and people don't want to acknowledge it. People don't want to realize it, but they do. STI rates in nursing homes and retirement communities, they are climbing. They're not astronomical, but they are climbing. Old people, I hate to say old people, older adults are having sex. And so we really need to acknowledge that and resonate with that fact. And so literally, what do we notice about all these 3 candidates that I have up here? They are HIV negative. If you are HIV negative, bearing very few minimal other preliminaries, you are a prime candidate for PrEP. If you are HIV negative and you're currently having sex, you are a prime candidate for PrEP. Also, one thing I skipped back for when we were talking about what is PrEP, PrEP is not also only for sex. PrEP is also for people who are injection drug users, just because obviously needles and things like that, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. But PrEP is not only for sex, I do want to say that. But if you are HIV negative, you are a prime candidate for HIV. No one person is more deserving of HIV than the next. And the reason for that is because who continued? HIV has no preference. If HIV was to have a Bumble profile or a Tinder profile right now, they would not care how tall you were. They would not care what your astrological sign was. They would not care what your race is, your height, your hobbies, your gender essentially on your penis, then it can, like the person you're sleeping with has HIV, then it can get into your bloodstreams. But again, it's even hard for me to talk about just because it just requires a whole host of other various factors. So there isn't a lot of like data available for it just because it could be one of any different reasons why the top or something can like contacts HIV in that situation, but you still can. There just isn't any real data you can find about it right now. And so right down here, it says PrEP is much less effective when taken not as prescribed. And so if you were come in and sit down and talk to me right now, how I would describe PrEP is exactly as you see it in these two pictures. PrEP is a brick wall against HIV. If you take it for 7 days, your brick wall should look like the figure over here on the left, at least it's on my left. It should look like this figure over here on the left. There's no holes, it's pretty sturdy. Now, if I take a sledgehammer to this wall, could bricks start falling out? Absolutely. But barring that, you should be pretty safe. Versus if you're taking PrEP, like, oh, I'll take it on Monday and then I skip Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but Friday, the weekend's coming up, I might take it right now. This is what your wall's going to look like, the figure on the white. It's going on the right. It's going to be this wall with a huge gaping hole in it. And that hole, if I was to throw things through that hole, there are a chance that a lot of things are going to slip through. And so what would you rather have going into a sexual situation? This very sturdy, completely constructed brick wall, or this brick wall where I could throw a tennis ball through and it's just a kind of a guessing game of whether or not it's going to actually go through the hole. So obviously, I would prefer it if you had the sturdy brick wall, and I'm pretty sure most people would as well. So take your medication every day as it's prescribed. Next thing is where to start. So to begin your journey with PrEP, just like I said, we live in the South. It is never easy to go and talk about your sex life. It's easy for me just because I'm pretty, like I said, I've been doing it for a long enough time where I can sit down and talk about sex anytime. But it is a big first step. And so the first step is to talk to a person you feel comfortable about, preferably your primary care physician. If you do not feel comfortable talking to your primary care physician about PrEP, maybe that's something you need to start thinking about the reason as to why. Are they not creating a more comfortable enough environment for you? Have you gone in there and you have tried to be tested for STIs and something's come back and it wasn't the answer you hoped for and they passed judgment? No matter what, your primary care physician, their primary concern should be your health. And if you're coming in saying that I want to be on PrEP, then that shows that you're taking the initiative to say, I want to protect myself. And if you receive any other response other than absolute support, they may ask you questions. Again, every PCP is going to be different. Like not everyone's just going to say, okay, you want to be on PrEP? Fine, let's go with it. Some may ask questions as to why, because that's things we need to know. Like if you came to me and you said you want to be on PrEP and you are asexual, you never plan to have sex, and you never want to have sex, I would ask you why. I would really want to know why you want to be on PrEP. But again, if you get anything other than support or if you ever feel judged or stigmatized, maybe it's time to consider switching up your primary care provider. And so basically, it all starts with a conversation with your PCP. And then from there, we move on into you've had the conversation, you discussed with your PCP about PrEP, they've given you a little bit of information on it, and you decide that it is right for you in your life. What happens next? A host of things. This is when we really start to get moving and we start to get involved in the PrEP process. And so I am speaking just from experience of what I've seen at New Horizons Family Health Services. Again, like I said, every place is different, but this, according to like CDC standards, is pretty customary to what you can expect once you start on your PrEP journey. And so after discussing with your PCP and deciding that it's appropriate for your lifestyle, the next step is to start ordering your initial labs. So the first thing you'll do after you get on, you decide you want to start getting on PrEP, at least at New Horizons Family Health Services, is that we order your initial labs. What happens in those labs is we test you for HIV. The reason for that is because, like I explained earlier, if you are HIV positive, you cannot be on PrEP. And the reason for that is because one of the medications that we use in PrEP, or the ingredients inside of that medication, is also used inside the regimen they use to treat HIV. And so if you're only taking that, but you're not taking the other medication that is prescribed for that, your body could begin to build up a tolerance for that, which will make the HIV medications less effective. And nobody wants that. So if you are HIV positive, you cannot be on PrEP. And there really wouldn't be a need to be on PrEP at that point. We would just need to get you on the right regimen for HIV or HIV infection. So your initial labs will be ordered. You will have an HIV screening. You will also have a chlamydia screening, both rectal and orally. So that's 2 swabs, one to the mouth, one to the rectal area. Another thing is a urine swab for chlamydia or gonorrhea. We also do one of those. And then you also tested for just kind of like a standard BMP, I believe it's called. Yeah, a standard BNP test. And that's just kind of checking more customary vital things. Specifically, what we're looking at is something in your body called creatinine. And what that is something that it's like a thing that goes on in your liver functions. Also, if y'all notice me talking and I'm saying words like things and things like that, I am the outreach specialist. I am the social worker. And so I have another person on my team. Her name is Hope. She is our nurse practitioner and she is what is called our HIV PrEP navigator. She does all the heavy, intense medical stuff. So when you come in, she will be there with me to say words that are not like stuff and things. She'll be able to say like the technical, what actually that stuff is, but that isn't my job. And so I don't really know the technical medical names for it, but I can give you enough to know what you're looking for when you come in. But when you come in, she will of course be there to make you feel more confident that someone actually knows what they're talking about more than just the fluffy stuff. But basically what we're looking for is your creatinine. And what that is something that goes on inside your kidney functions and it affects bone density. And so if that gets too low, then your bone density gets a little bit too low. And at a certain level, your body will just react negatively to PrEP. Like the side effects will be worse. Everything will just not happen the way we want it to. It just will have negative consequences. And so if your creatinine is low, that will circumvent you from being on PrEP. And so essentially that's where we start. Initial labs ensures you're HIV negative and there are no outstanding STIs that require immediate treatment because we want to make sure we're taking care of PrEP is a preventative. We want to make sure we're taking care of the things that need to be handled right now first. So after your initial labs, if everything comes back looking the way it should, your prescribed or your provider will make a prescription for PrEP. And you will receive one of these 3 medications that I have listed below. You'll have Truvada, you'll have Descovy, which I spelled wrong, but whatever, or you'll have that generic brand that I mentioned, which is amitriptyline. Yeah, I did pronounce that right. Yeah, I got it. So yeah, or you'll have that generic pill, which is amitriptyline. And the more I say it, the more I can get it wrong. So let's move on. And then once that prescription is written, after like again, depending on where your pharmacy is, if you come to New Horizons Family Health Services and we write that prescription that day, you could probably it's very likely you could actually not very likely, you can pick that prescription up before you leave the office that day. If you have to take it somewhere outside of house, like a CVS or Walgreens, something like that, it could vary anywhere between also a couple of hours. It could be a day. This isn't me like trashing them or their pharmacy. That's just what I know from experience. And so the next thing that happens after that, once you get on PrEP, is you're going to need to monitor yourself because, again, as with anybody, after it starts a new form of medication, there is a possibility for side effects. And I'll get into what those are in a few minutes. But what happens is you monitor yourself for about the first few days. Generally, we do it after 5 and after you start PrEP. And you kind of just record if you notice anything unusual starting to happen in your body. It's like, oh, this wasn't happening before I take PrEP. Please write that down or record it, especially if it's weird enough that you notice, because it's probably something you need to address. It could be something that could go away as soon as, like I said, you've hit that 7 days and your body's adjusted to the medication, or it could be something that requires us to sit back and think, okay, we may need to switch something up here. So just make sure you record any unusual changes in your health. And then after that, once you make it past the first 5 days, everything's good. You kind of got accustomed to the regimen. You're taking your pills every single day like you should be. Then you won't have to see anyone, or you shouldn't have to see anyone if everything is okay for at least 3 months. After 3 months, you come back into the office. We talk to you about how PrEP is going, how things are going in your life, how things are going in your sex life, if everything is good, any changes. Like we ask those questions because if you are now like engaged in a partner who does have HIV, those are things we kind of want to know to say, okay, hey, we might want you to come back in like, sorry, looks like a gnat or something right in front of my face. We might need you to come back in like a little bit more frequently just to make sure everything is okay. Or like if you have engaged in a monogamous relationship with a person with HIV negative, you both have gotten tested together, you're like, okay, we're clean, I want to come off of PrEP. those are just things we need to know so we can make adjustments as necessary. And then also you need to get those new labs again. So pretty much every lab that you had when you first started PrEP, you got to have those every 3 months. Again, we want to make sure we want to get you tested for HIV every time as much as possible, just because if you have HIV, as I said before, you contract HIV, you cannot be on PrEP just because it won't be beneficial for you at all. And it actually may make things worse in the future. So, but yeah, the HIV screenings, the STI screenings, those happen every 3 months just to ensure that no modifications need to be made. And so now the fun thing about starting medication is side effects. We all love the side effects and what they do to our body when we're always trying to make our body healthier. And so the side effects for PrEP are not the worst, but none of these things are things that you want. And so the most common side effects that are reported is headaches, nausea, vomiting, upset stomach, diarrhea, rash, loss of appetite. And right there at the bottom is the osteoporosis. And that's what I talk about with that like change to your bone density and things like that with that creatinine. And so that one right there is the most serious one, but it is also the rarest one. It is one that I personally have not seen or witnessed myself, but there are reports of it happening. So it is very rare. It is me personally, I've heard of the upset stomach and diarrhea. I've heard of the loss of appetite. I've heard of the nausea. I have not heard of the osteoporosis from any of my patients personally, but again, we just want to make sure all the information is out there so you can make the best decision for yourself. So moving on past that. So this slide right here is specifically all about what goes on inside of New Horizons Family Health Services, specifically our PrEP program. So our PrEP program is pretty much still not really in its infancy. We kind of hit like our toddler stages, I guess, in the sense of programs. Like, we're crawling, we're walking, we might stumble and fall every few minutes, especially with me on the team, but we're pretty consistent. And so what goes on is if you come to New Horizons Family Health Services for PrEP, we generally prefer that you have a provider inside of our house, just because, like I said, New Horizons Family Health Services is a primary care health center, something like that. It's a clinic basically. And we have providers on site. And we also have other services like behavioral health or dental services, things like that. But the reason that we prefer you to have a provider in-house at New Horizons Family Health Services is because it just kind of cuts out a lot of the middleman. Like there really wouldn't be a point for you to utilize our services there if you have a provider that you trust outside of house. I mean, I'm awesome and I love to come and talk to anybody about PrEP who wants to talk to me about PrEP, but it would just be you making a trip for nothing just to see my smiling face or whatever snazzy outfit I'm wearing that day. So preferably, we prefer for you to have a provider in New Horizons Family Health Services. And not even most, all of our providers there who provide PrEP or will put you on PrEP or talk to you about PrEP, they are super affirming. They are the coolest people. I love working with them every single day. I've never personally witnessed anybody shame or make anybody feel uncomfortable about wanting PrEP because, as like I said, at the end of the day, our primary concern is your health. And so all participants who kind of are part of our PrEP program, we prefer you to have a provider in-house with us. At New Horizons Family Health Services, as I said, you only have to meet with that PCP once annually. Every single other time you come back in for those every 3 months like meetings, you're going to see myself, and then you're also going to see the woman I mentioned, Hope, who again, as I said, is our PrEP navigator, who is our nurse practitioner. All of those appointments are going to be handled by us. You only have to see your PCP once annually, just because they do like to see your face and to make sure you're okay and to make sure everything else, like to handle all those other things that could be going on outside of PrEP. Because one thing people do is that if you get put on PrEP, every single thing that goes wrong in between that time is not going to be directly related to PrEP. If you come in and you sprain your back, that has nothing to do with PrEP. You need to see your PCP about that because I don't know what to tell you. So basically, you have to see your PCP once annually. Or if you need to see them more, if something goes on, that's fine, but at least once annually just so they can see your face. Like I said, all consultations are handled by the PrEP team, which is myself and Hope, and they are free, which is also everyone, I put that in white and I put asterisk next to it because everyone loves that word. If you come in and see us for a meeting with us, consults with us are free. So you will not have to pay to come in and see my smiling face or my snazzy outfit or meet with Hope. You won't have to pay for that. You will have to pay for the labs. Blood work, as we all know, unfortunately, is not cheap. So you will have to pay for that, but just to come in and talk to me or myself or Hope about PrEP, you never have to pay for any of those appointments. But in the same side as talking about free and cheap, New Horizons Family Health Services offers a really great sliding scale. It's just off, they're all tailored to accommodate whatever your income level is. And so if you don't have insurance, that is not a problem. We can put you on a sliding scale based on your income level, which ranges from like A to, I think the lowest number is like K, I believe, K or H, somewhere in between there. But the sliding scale is really awesome. It can take something that would cost you like $500 anywhere else, and you could walk out and pay anywhere from $15 to nothing. Like it just depends on your situation, your income level. But we do offer a sliding scale fee, and that's not only for PrEP. That is for pretty much anything that you need done in New Horizons Family Health Services. That sliding scale fee is universal at New Horizons. And again, like I said, the last thing and one of the most important things, in my opinion, is a safe, sex positive, judgment free environment. I cannot stress that enough. And I tell that every time I come and sit down with somebody for the first time. And it's really funny because every time my patients come in, they sit across from me. You know how most people usually sit on like the chair where the patients are supposed to sit, like the long thing. I usually, for some reason, just prop up there and cross my legs, and they sit in the chair across from me, which I always think is weird. But I do it anyway just because it's the most comfortable for me. But there will never be a time where you'll come in and you'll say something to me and I will give you any kind of thing other than support and, like I said, a safe, positive environment. If there's virtually nothing you can say that will come in and shock me, or if it does, you'll never know because I'll just be like, I've never heard that before. Tell me more, because I'm inquisitive. I want to know. Like, if there's something going on that I haven't heard about, I want to know about it, so I can be woke about it. But yeah, so you'll always come in. You'll always have a safe, positive environment. You'll never have to worry about anybody judging you or making negative remarks. And so, how can I afford it? So, PrEP is a drug. As we know, drugs are expensive. They cost money. Also, Ethan, I don't know how I'm doing with time, so just in case, like, give me like, okay, cool. So yeah, drugs cost money. And so how can you afford it? PrEP is super affordable. It is extremely affordable. Actually, what is it called? The like National Preventative Services Task Force. They have their own thing, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. The United States National Preventative Task Force or something like that. They just registered preventative medications as a scale of A, or like a rating of A, as far as like, what's it called? The Affordable Care Act. So that means that most insurances should cover PrEP, where you should not have an out-of-pocket copay cost. Most insurances should do that. And I have like a thing later, we'll talk about how you can check and see if your insurance is one that falls under that brand. But with PrEP being a preventative drug, most insurances will cover the cost of PrEP. As yours don't, come down to New Horizon Family Health Services, and I have some tips and tricks for you about that. But how can I afford it? There are a host of options available to make the out-of-pocket cost for PrEP medications virtually free for patients. There are various things such as the Gilead Advanced Accessing Program, and you can, if you Google any of these, you can access these online, just get information about them. But these are programs that are available for you to kind of supplement the out-of-pocket cost of PrEP. If you like, this is specifically for people who don't have insurance, because again, generally, if you have insurance, I have not run into a situation where insurance has not covered PrEP. So this is mostly people who don't have insurance. The Gilead Advancing Access Program, which I know up and down, backwards and forwards, I will be able to take care of that if that is a problem. The Gilead copay coupon card, I haven't had to use that much, just because that's for instances where a person has had insurance and they haven't covered it completely, which I've only ran into that once, but the option is there. And then Ready Set PrEP is kind of alternative option to the Gilead Advancing Access Program. It's just for certain specific situations. And so if you fall under that category, then we go towards that. Bottom line to this is, if you need PrEP and you need it to be affordable, there is again, nothing is ever 100%, but there's like a 95% chance I can make it happen. If I can't make it happen, something is just off, and I will do my darndest to figure out what it is, but I can do whatever I can to make PrEP affordable. But just like I said, there is no one size fits all method to affording PrEP, and it all is dependent on insurance coverage, your income, and your experience for PrEP could just vary. You could have a zero copay cost. You can have a $25 copay cost. If it's more than $25, I will be concerned and I will be doing some research, but it just varies. Mythbusters, which is my favorite part. And so this is the part of our conversation where we're going to talk about things that you may have heard about PrEP before. Some of them may be right, some of them may be wrong. I will never lead you astray. I'm just going to tell you what I know from my professional experiences, and I want you to make the best decisions for yourself. And some of them I've already touched on in this conversation, so we'll see if you can get the answer. First, Is PrEP only for gay men? No. As I've said it before, no, it is not. PrEP has no preference. It, again, like I said, it will get in where it fits in. It does not have a look. It does not have a type. Not PrEP, HIV can affect anybody. So PrEP is not only for gay men. I have female patients who are completely straight. I have male patients who are completely straight or heterosexual or not engaging in any same-sex practices. So no, PrEP is not only for one cluster of people. Next, once I start PrEP, I can't ever stop taking PrEP. Absolutely not. As I mentioned earlier, PrEP is a personal health choice. We do not slap a handcuff onto you once you start to come and get PrEP and say you have to be on PrEP for the rest of your life till death do you part. No. If you get into a monogamous relationship with somebody who is also HIV negative and you feel like you're safe and you trust them enough where you can both get off PrEP, I'm totally fine with that. I am happy for you. I want people to be happy. So I am happy for you. Again, like I said, if you are absolutely positive. Or if you just get to a period where, you're taking some time for yourself, you're working on you, and you're not really thinking about sex right now. You're like, I really don't want to, come and pay for the lab work just because I'm not having sex at all right now. That's also fine. PrEP is a personal choice. I'm not going to say, growth, you need to stay on PrEP. No, I'll say, okay, if you don't feel this is right for you, let's get your PCP involved and let's just make the best decision for you. So yes, you can get off PrEP once you start it. It's not till death do you part. Being on PrEP means that I'm promiscuous. The word promiscuous is just a trigger word for me anyway. It's just because we're not going to think. Like I said, I'm completely on the brand of sex positive. Your number or whatever the situation is your business, and the person who or the people whom you bring into your bedroom. Nobody else's opinion about that should matter. But no, it does not. Again, like I said, you could be in a completely monogamous married relationship, and the person who you're involved with could be HIV positive, and so it would only make the most sense for you to be on PrEP. So no, being PrEP does not mean you are out there, you are wide open, you are a slut, you're promiscuous, nothing. And even if you weren't, it's nobody's bitch but your own. Fight me about it. Next, taking PrEP means I can stop using condoms. I was going to do a thing when I got to this and be very petty and hit my camera when I say no, but my whole laptop might fall over if I do that. But the answer is no. The answer is flat out 100% no, full stop, period. I'm not going to elaborate on that because no. Well, I am going to elaborate on that. PrEP does not prevent you from getting other STIs. PrEP does not protect you from chlamydia. PrEP does not protect you from syphilis. PrEP does not protect you from gonorrhea. It protects you from HIV. You need to use condoms because, again, PrEP may be a brick wall from HIV, but it's not even a fishing net against other things. It is nothing against other things. So use condoms simultaneously while on PrEP. Next, if I miss a dose, will I need to see my doctor immediately? That just kind of depends. If you took your dose on Monday, something happened on Tuesday, you just forgot about it, and Wednesday you're back on track, the answer I'm going to feel pretty comfortable saying is no, as long as you immediately get back on track with it. Now, if you haven't taken PrEP for 3 weeks and you have had a little bit of fun in the past couple of weeks and you're a little concerned, call your PCP. Hopefully you'll be coming to New Horizons, so you'll have my number. Call me specifically and let me know what's going on, and we'll try to get you in and just mainly is get you HIV testing and things like that to make sure you're okay before we say, okay, it's cool for you to go back on your regimen. And how can we make sure you're adhering? Do we need to work on setting up some alarms? Do we need to get you a pill box? Do we need to get you some, push reminders? Just so it depends. It honestly depends. Long-acting injectable PrEP. So I don't know if a lot of you heard about it, but there is this new long-acting injectable medication for HIV treatment. It's called, I am not going to lie to you right now and say what it is, but it's Carbigatova or something like that. But there's also something in the works on the horizon for that with PrEP. At this point, virtually is only studies, and even the studies I have seen, I'm not too thrilled with or hopeful with. I'm hopeful, but it's still a long way out. So if you've heard something about it and it's hey, I got this injectable PrEP for you right now, I would be concerned about it. It would be sketchy to me. I wouldn't really go for it. Right now, the only thing that I know about is the medications. So I would focus on those. The 2-on-1 method. A lot of people don't know what that is, but what the 2-on-1 method is kind of prevention method where you take PrEP kind of extremely preventative, like I'm about to go out and have sex tonight. So you take, I think it's like you take a pill anywhere between 2 hours to 24 hours before you have sex. And then you take another one like every 24 hours after that until you're finished, like you're finished having sex, like period. Like I'm gonna take a break from sex. And then you take one pill every like 2 days after that, something like that. Don't do that. And the reason why I'm saying don't do that is because if you go out, like if you Google something, you're gonna find something in support of it. Like, I mean, you're just gonna find something in support of anything you Google. But it's complicated. Basically, even I explained it, it is very complicated. It requires you to be very on top of, like, you have to take this within a certain amount of time or everything could crumble. And I just, in my opinion, taking one pill once a day sounds easier than I gotta have a timer for 24 hours. I gotta have a timer for every something something. So the 2-in-1 method is growing in popularity. I personally don't recommend it. I professionally don't recommend it. PrEP is like Plan B for HIV. No, it is not. That is PEP. PEP is if you come into an instance where you believe you come in contact with the HIV virus and you don't feel like you're protected against it, you go to your primary care provider and they will get you started on PEP, which is post-exposure prophylaxis. And that basically is just the same thing, but it's working on fight. I think that's when they actually give you the regimen for HIV, and that's working on actually fighting the HIV virus if it's in your bloodstream. And so, no, it's not. That is PEP. Oh, okay, cool. Moving on. And so this is just a bunch of helpful resources that will give you if you come into Horizon Family Health Services, or just I found while I've been doing my research about PrEP. Healthy Sexual is pretty great because it just gives you this quiz about is PrEP right for me, and also it just gives you a fun, useful tips for discussing HIV or PrEP with your primary care provider if you kind of need a little bit of help getting that conversation started. And it's also a tracker for LGBTQIA plus affirming PCPs in your area. PrEPsquad.org. I love this one because it is just a really real kind of source for getting information about PrEP. And what I mean by real is it doesn't use a lot of the medical jargon. It's just very like, this is what it is, this is what happens, this is what you can expect. It does have not safe for work on it just because I'm pretty positive there isn't any porn on it. But I do know there was a video I saw where men were in Speedo. So they're obviously very much catering to a very specific market. So I wouldn't pull it up on your work computer just in case, because I haven't clicked all the videos, but I do know from some of the pictures that I've seen, there's scantily clad men. So just be careful where you watch it. PleasePrepMe.org is just a tracker for local institutes that prescribe PrEP in your area. GetYourPrep.org is one of those financial assistance programs that's specifically rated to PrEP, where you can, if you wanted to enroll yourself online and you don't want to deal with, me for some hurtful reason, then that is where you can go for that. And then NASDAQ is what I mentioned earlier about just other PrEP assistance program resources. And then healthcare.gov is what I mentioned earlier, where you can see if your specific health insurance plan will cover the cost of PrEP. Oh, and then lastly, so bringing this to a close, as I said, as I started it is how I'll finish it. Let's talk about PrEP. If you want, I would love to see any and everybody who would love to come to New Horizons Family Health Services and get started on PrEP. That is a very gorgeous picture of me that our marketing director took of me on Easter where I was wearing my yellow and I look great. But that again is my title. That is my phone number at work. I'm supposed to be getting a cell phone. When the winds turn, I will get that cell phone, but it's coming. But right now, this is just my office number, but that is my direct extension. So if you call this number, which is our office number, and then hit that extension, you will get my voicemail. You will get me directly. Please leave a message. Please leave a callback number, and I will get back to you. Usually I get back to most people within 24 hours, if not that same day, but generally within 24 hours. That is my email address if you're more comfortable with that. And again, that is where I'm located. That is our Facebook page. I do not run our Facebook page. I don't have anything to do with our Facebook page, but there generally is information about PrEP up there, and also when like we're hosting an event or running something like that. So you can also reach out to me. Well, that's more so if you want information. To reach out to me, I would use either one of these contact methods, or like even just coming to the office would be a quicker way to get me than using the Facebook page. But yeah. So those are the ways to reach me. I would love to see any and everyone who wants to come, and just again, thank everybody so much for your time and kind of being here or watching this later whenever you see it. And just know that PrEP is something that it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing drug. I personally I personally would swear by it if I needed to, just because I've seen the help and the good that it's done for people. So it's not anything to be scared of. It is not a scary conversation. I'm the least scary person to have that type of conversation with. So just please come see me, hang out, and thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Devonte. That was super helpful. I feel like, I mean, I learned a ton, and I hope that I know that everybody that is watching, that will watch later, will definitely learn. And also, if you are watching this and for whatever reason can't get a hold or don't want to reach out immediately to Devonte or New Horizons, you can definitely reach out to us at PrideLink and I can put you in touch. And I really appreciate the way that you presented it to Devonte. Just, easy, supportive, open, sex positive. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Thank you so much.